In the early part of the 20th century, West Virginia's Capitol building was an impressive Victorian-era structure recognized across the state. That building no longer exists due to a fire some say might have been caused by state employees playing craps in the attic. Hello, folks. I'm Steve Gilley, along with Rod Mullins, and this is one of the stories of Appalachia.
Playing craps in the attic of the Capitol building.
Wow. Why would anybody be doing that, you reckon?
I don't know. Politics, gambling, don't they kind of go hand in hand with one another at one point, But still, I'm just like, it could have been caused by these employees playing craps in the attic, but still, the cost of history in this Victorian era structure that you were talking about, that's kind of hard to believe. And all of this may have been blamed on a game of craps.
Possibly. Now, I don't know if you've seen this building, Rod. It was a gorgeous building with spires and all that stuff. It was beautiful, and to see it burn to the ground is kind of sad. But it's an interesting story that has a couple of twists and turns, which we'll get into as we get into this.
Okay.
Well, just imagine, Rod, a roaring fire, a Capitol building engulfed in flames and explosions, and amidst it all, tales of carjackers, dice games, and a weapons cache in the attic, just in case a full-scale civil war broke out in the coal fields. It is a story for the ages, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I would. Something like that.
Well, it all began on January 3rd, 1921. The Victorian Capitol, a beautiful grand structure completed in the late 1800s, housed the seat of West Virginia's government. But on that fateful day, everything changed when the building mysteriously caught fire. Reports suggest that the fire possibly began around 2:30 in the afternoon in a storage room on the fourth floor attic. It was a stenographer on the second floor who noticed smoke pouring from the attic around 3:15, and Rod, that's when chaos ensued.
Well, the fire department rushed in, but unfortunately, the blaze was already out of control. And here's the twist. This attic wasn't just storing office supplies, nor was it storing any kind of legal records. It housed a significant ammunition stockpile, put there just in case the then ongoing labor unrest in the southern West Virginia coalfields escalated into an actual rebellion against the state government. As you can imagine, the fire soon spread to the attic, and before you know it, shots began to ring out from bullets exploding from the heat. It kind of reminds me of the scene in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, where they're trying to run them out of the barn at that time. Fire catches hold, burns up and blows up the truck and so forth. Well, folks had shown up to watch the fire, as you'd expect, but what wasn't expected by those spectators was for them to be shot. The crowd began to flee to safety as quick as their legs would take them, and hopefully not shot out from underneath them by the bullets going off. But as they say on TV ads, wait, there's more.
Oh, indeed, there was more. See, Rod, there were two men there on the scene, and they just happened to get a bright idea. That, at least it was bright to them. They saw an unattended fire truck, so they jumped in and they carjacked it. The two then took a joyride of a lifetime through the streets of Charleston until the cops caught them and put them in jail. And this was just one of the bizarre elements in this already tragic story. 3 lives were lost during the fire: an electrician, Edward Spencer, Howard Pauley, who was helping the firemen battle the blaze, and Charles Walker, who was killed by falling stones from the building. They all lost their lives that day.
Well, after the fire was under control, attention turned to its origin. Initially, the fire was thought to be caused by, well, a lot of people would have probably thought this, faulty electrical wiring. But here's where it gets interesting. Chief Janitor James J. Geiss had a different notion of where the fire began. He pointed fingers at the dice games. You guessed it, the regular crap shooting sessions that allegedly occurred in the attic. Tell me something I don't know. Geiss claimed that the fire wasn't due to faulty wiring, but It could be linked to these gambling sessions. And I've got to say this too. Usually, janitors have a better idea of what's going on in these places than the regular folk. So it could be true out of this. But what's astonishing is that despite guards, oh gosh, get this, the Capitol doors were open day and night, allowing anyone to enter freely off the street. That's hard to believe. Well, there's another layer to this mystery. As if one layer wasn't enough, we've got another one for you. A local lawyer choosing to remain anonymous shared a chilling prediction made by William Briggs, a prisoner at the West Virginia State Penitentiary. Briggs accurately foresaw, I don't know how, but he foresaw the Capitol's destruction by either a bomb or explosion weeks before the fire, Steve.
Either he's a prophet or, well, I think you can figure out the other option.
Or he's
there.
A nut. Or he's a nut.
Or he's behind it.
True.
Yeah. Anyway, the plot thickens, as they say. Was this a case of foresight or inside knowledge? Well, the mystery behind Briggs' prediction raises questions about the fire's true cause. Now, Rod, following the blaze, a temporary Capitol made of wood and dubbed the pasteboard Capitol was built. Ironically, though, the pasteboard Capitol lasted only 6 years before it, too, was destroyed by a fire, not long before the new permanent Capitol building was open for business. That building still stands and remains the West Virginia Capitol. But we're not done yet, are we, Rod?
Oh, no, we're not by any means. To this day, rumors abound about ghostly occurrences linked to the tragedy. They're not linked to the Mothman. Let's just go ahead and say that and make it clear. Legend has it that at midnight, if you go to that part of Charleston, you might hear echoes of firemen battling the blaze, chains clanking, hoses being dragged, and voices struggling against the fire, along with the distinct odor of smoke and burned wood. Ooh, sounds eerie. Well, that's not all. Some folks claim that the spirit of the night watchman janitor responsible for those alleged dice games lingers at the site due to his sorrow for what happened. People even leave offerings of alcohol for this long lost soul, as he's been out there, hoping to ease his eternal burden.
Always got to have a spooky story about some of this stuff, but that's a pretty good one there, to be honest with you.
I like it.
I guess this is probably the same janitor that said that there were dice games going on up there. Maybe he just felt a little guilty about all that, like it said here, and his spirit really is at there wandering Charleston, seeking penance all these years later. This is a very interesting story. When you think about something like this happening, I mean, it's a tragedy in that you hear about a building burning down and losing a lot of documents, maybe losing some lives. You don't think about that being connected to a crap game upstairs.
Right.
You don't think about somebody just coming out in the middle of the action and stealing a fire truck and running around Charleston with it. This is just an odd little story and a very interesting part of the history of Appalachia.
I don't see why these guys, it didn't make any sense, why these guys would jump in a fire truck and decide to go joyriding around Charleston.
Well, can't you see somebody thinking that nowadays? Now, whether they had the guts to do it, that's a whole nother story. But, it's like, hey, they're not watching. Let's get that truck and go. I could kind of see that in a way.
I can see that too. I also see that from a video from years ago when whoever the bystander was at Talladega gets into the pace car, goes around the track on the pace car, and when the Alabama State Police finally get a hold of him, they're not just simply saying, "Let's go, sir, let's get out of the car." They grab him by the hair of the head and jerk him out of that Pontiac Trans Am that's been driving around the track, and he's been the one in it. I would think that the police would have done something, but things were probably crazy that night. I'd say that probably they weren't able to maybe get a hold of these guys like they'd hoped to. But, it comes back to this thing again. And we talk about the janitor.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things that I'm taught about school, about everything else. A janitor knows more about what's going on in some places than people give them credit for. They know what's generally going on. It would be almost, in a way, very likely this could have happened, but we'll never know.
Well, yeah, I guess the janitor's the only one that's in every room and cleaning every
Mm-hmm.
room and seeing what goes on. I just find it odd that they kept the doors open day and night. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
just imagine that today. Somebody come in there and where was it? Colorado. That's right. Recently, Colorado, somebody just walked into the Colorado Supreme Court building. Have you heard about
Wow.
that?
No, I had not heard about that.
Yeah, fired shots and everything. Police caught him and arrested him. But yeah, he just not long ago just walked in and started shooting the place up. So that surprised me. But this just seems strange. Just keep the doors open and let all this stuff happen. It was a tragedy. And then also, I don't know how much of a tragedy it was for the next building to be burned down, but at least they've had one that's lasted almost 100 years at this point.
Kind of added insult to injury, too. The fact of the pasteboard Capitol burning also, maybe not due to the same thing, but, a temporary structure. And of course, the building that we know today is the state capitol there in Charleston. But still, it's kind of ominous in such a way that this thing went down, 6 years, I think, after the original, after the very nice one, burned to the ground. Here went the pasteboard Capitol down to the ground, burned again. But by that time, they already had the new state capitol built in Charleston. But still, a lot of eerie things in this story.
Well, it is eerie. It's a haunting tale, a blend of
Mm-hmm.
history, tragedy, and the supernatural. The fire that
Mm-hmm.
destroyed the Victorian Capitol continues to leave its mark on Charleston. And, well, it's another one of the stories of Appalachia. Thanks for listening. Now, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our stories of Appalachia. Now, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Audible, or in your favorite podcast app. And for those of you who are subscribed to us on Google Podcasts, we need to let you know, if you don't know already, that they're going to shut Google Podcasts down in April. We are now on YouTube Music. They have a podcast section. So those of you on Google, go on over to YouTube Music and subscribe to us, and you'll catch our podcasts over there. Well, till next we meet, y'all take care. So long, everybody.